Hello and welcome everyone to our webinar today, and it is on information architecture. My name is Mila. I'm one of the senior consultants in Bunnyfoot, and I'm going to assist my colleague Steven today, who is going to talk about how to structure and organize information on websites, on apps, on any other devices, so that your users can find and discover information quickly and easily. Today, our webinar actually broke the record. So we have more than 500 people who are going to attend our webinar from more than 250 companies. So you can see some of the logos that we put on this slide to show proudly of some of the companies that are attending our workshop today. Not workshop, our webinar. So before we move on with our presentation, I'd like to very briefly introduce Bunnyfoot to those of you who don't know us yet. So we are a company that's been here for quite a while. We've been running for 24 years. And our core belief is that every design decision, every decision in the company should be based on evidence. So during the last 24 years, we worked with many, many different companies from different industries, and with the helping them with research, with design, strategy, training needs as well. And we're a team of 40 people, experts in different fields such as interaction design, accessibility, service design, UX strategy, just to name a few. And we have offices in London and Sheffield, but we also have the global reach through our network of partners. And in 2018, we joined the Sideshow Group, which means that we're able to deliver end-to-end products and support our clients with a full range of additional services such as SEO, conversion rate optimization, data science development, communications, and branding. And I also want to mention a few things that we need to consider today before I pass the mic to Steven. First and foremost, we will have Q&A, so please drop your questions in the Q&A box and we'll answer them at the end of the webinar. Please don't use the chat function for that. Use the Q&A box, and you also would be able to upvote the questions that you really like. Secondly, we will run 3 polls throughout our presentations, so keep an eye on the polls box, but we are going to mention when we start those polls. And the other thing is we're going to do the recording of our session. We're not going to share the slides, but we would be able to share the recording. For that, please get in touch with our colleague Joe if you want to get an access. And I believe Joe is going to do some follow-ups anyway for everyone who will attend the webinar. So this is all for the housekeeping. And without further ado, I'll pass the mic, as I said, to Steven. So Steven, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mila. Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Steven. Just a very quick introduction. So I've been doing digital development for 23 odd years now in various guises: user experience, product management, and strategy. Worked for a range of different clients, mostly in financial services, but I've been with Bunnyfoot now for about 3 or 4 years. So what is information architecture? So information architecture, this is probably the best quote, I think, that says it quite nicely. It is the structuring of information on a website, app, or other product. So the 3 key things to remember in information architecture is that this includes organizing your content logically, describing it clearly, and providing routes for people to get it. So we'll be structuring today's conversation around those 3 themes. I'm actually going to reverse the order, so we'll start talking about providing routes first. But before we do that, just want to do a quick poll. So if you look to the poll section, you should be able to answer this question. How well labeled and organized is the information on your website? In your opinion, where do you think you currently sit? Do you think it's very clear, so everybody can find what they're looking for? Is it slightly clear, as in there is good navigation, but could be improved? Is it okay? Do you think it might be slightly confusing for your users, or is it very confusing? So if you can vote now, I can't see the results, but Mila will be able to go through them for us just quickly.
Yeah, I can see that some of the results are popping through. We have 114 responses already. So maybe I'll go just leave it just a couple of more seconds. If anyone else wants to submit their answer, 149 responses. Okay, a couple of more seconds and I'll tell you the results. So far we have the winner, okay, the okay results with roughly 50 people who said that they're okay. 46 people said slightly confusing, 47 now. Slightly clear, 43 people. And very clear, 11. And very confusing, 13 people. So in the total, we have almost 170 responses. Okay. It seems like okay is the average.
Okay. That sounded like almost like a perfect bell curve going up in the middle for okay, but that's very interesting. Okay, so see if your opinions on that change by the end of the presentation. So first of all, we'll be talking about providing routes to the information on your website. So routes to information can be either active or passive. So the best way to think about this, imagine when you last booked an Airbnb. If you needed a hairdryer, you probably knew where to look for that. It was probably somewhere close to the bathroom or the bedroom, and you'd expect to find it in a drawer. So this is active information seeking because you're actively looking for it. But whilst you were on your way into the property, you might have noticed a small sign somewhere with the Wi-Fi coordinate. You didn't need to search for it because it was intentionally positioned somewhere that you would see it. This is passive information seeking because you discover it without actually looking for it. In website terms, this is the difference between findability and discoverability. So findability is the extent to which users can find something they are looking for. To be findable, it needs to be where people expect it to be. This can be measured in usability testing. So by creating tasks to find information and then seeing if users could complete that task and how long it actually takes them to do it. So for example, for this website, you could create a task to find the virtual reality products. Discoverability is different. So discoverability is whether or not something they aren't looking for can be found. So here, you may want to know if your users notice the newsletter and sign up. To test this is a bit harder because you can't actually create a task specifically related to the newsletter because they wouldn't be discovering it, they'd be looking for it. You could use data analysis. Another way is to create a task that requires the user to explore the same page and then ask participants later what they noticed. Try to elicit the information before you show it to them to avoid any biases. Asking participants if they noticed something during the test isn't reliable, as participants can be influenced just by having it pointed out to them. So whether to click or scroll to find information can depend on the context of the user situation. So clicking is often quicker, and when users want to find information, that's useful. But scrolling is often better when you're trying to discover information. So every click requires the users to find a link, read it, target it, click it, and then wait for the information to load. And this doesn't even take into consideration the decision-making process. Do I want to click on this? Is it going to show me something interesting? Users don't like having to decide, so help them discover information by removing those obstacles like click, and use scroll to display the information. Take, for example, this web page. This is for a car leasing website. So if you want to discover everything that was included in their all-inclusive package, the user needs to click 7 times. So as they click through it, each click reveals a small amount of information that often doesn't provide much more information beyond the title. A better solution to this would be to list the information that allow the user to scroll through all that information. Take, for example, here, just a quick example, how Sky informs users of their TV and their broadband packages by allowing them to scroll down the screen to find all the information. This banking interaction is even more cognitive effort for the user, as they've got to click twice to find out what's behind each link. Take, for example, the second option here. If a user has a financial struggle, then they must decide if it's worth clicking on the first link labeled "Our finances a struggle, we can help." Assuming they do, they are then presented with 2 messages: support with the rising cost of doing business. Together we can look at ways to help your business more resilient. Now they've got to decide if there's enough additional information to click again. Putting all your information behind too many links will make it harder for them to discover. It may not seem like a big effort, but it can lead to some users giving up. Mega menus are a good way to help with discoverability. So as well as helping users to learn about the taxonomy of a website, they can educate them on the content. So this is John Lewis's MegaNav, and they show the first, second, and the third level at the same time, and it clearly lays them out. Categories like Inspire Me will mean very little on their own, but a MegaNav clearly informs users what this section contains. It's unlikely that a user will have even known that autumn decor is even a thing. So they won't search for that sort of stuff. So this helps them discover it. It's really important though with mega menus, you need to keep a few things in mind and implement them with a lot of care. So keep it simple, avoid clutter and too many options or too much content. Consider how it's going to work on a mobile device, as they're typically designed for a desktop, and consider how sensitive it is. So users who don't want to interact with your MegaNav need to be able to scroll over and scroll past it quickly without it opening. So you've got to build in a slight delay. As with everything, test MegaNavs extensively before you implement them. Another key thing with finding information is you've got to implement, when you're implementing your navigation menus, you need to follow conventions. So users have got a mental model already about how your navigation should work. And that's because they've probably used the same navigation on similar websites before. So as a result, they expect you to work in a very similar way. And if you deviate from these conventions, it creates confusion. And not surprisingly, confusing navigations is consistently referred to as one of the main reasons for users leaving a website. So take, for example, e-commerce websites. Most of them have a very consistent set of conventions. In the top left, you have a logo that always navigates you home. In the top center, you have a visible search bar. In the top right, you have a store finder, help, my account, favorites, basket, depending on what you're offering. And then lower middle is a visible top tier navigation. So ignoring these conventions will make it harder for users to navigate through your website and creates the risk of them leaving quickly. Discoverability of a navigation is proportionate to its visibility. So there's been lots of studies. There was a big study by Nielsen Norman Group back in 2016 that found when using hamburger menus, discoverability of the navigation is cut almost in half on a desktop and by a third on mobile. Hamburger menu is an icon consisting of 3 horizontal lines that signifies there's a menu link behind it. It was initially created in the 80s by Xerox, and these 3 lines are supposed to depict what a menu looks like. A lot's been written about hamburger menus over the years. On balance, the research does suggest, like the Nielsen Norman study, that hiding the navigation behind the links makes it harder because users may struggle to discover it. However, it is worth noting that this was 7 years ago, the study, and behavior can change because our experience of using interfaces does change as well. The more we use an interface, the more we learn about the common features of it. So today, hamburger menus are generally quite commonplace on a mobile device, where there's little room to actually put all your options in. However, hiding a menu should only be done on a mobile device. There is plenty of room here to show the navigation on the home page for a desktop. So displaying your menu also helps users understand what your product or your service is if it's an unfamiliar website to them. What are the alternatives then to hamburger menus? So as you can see, a lot of e-commerce sites use the hamburger menus. Some of them located on the left, some of them located on the right, and some of them actually label it as a menu to make it clear what they are. Whilst these may be highly recognizable icons, best practice is always to label your icons anyway. So where possible, make sure you label your menu icon to inform people it is a menu. Paul Smith and Google use what's called an overflow horizontal scroll. So the navigation options go off the page, and they kind of rely on that Gestalt principle of continuation to indicate there's more content, because you can just see a little bit of the end and it suggests it's cut off. I know to scroll it. However, if the screen size doesn't cut off the text, there's no visual clue, and that's where people may not really know there are additional options further off the page. So implement that with care. If you have a concise navigation with only a few options, then you can consider displaying all of it on mobile. Sky have actually created a reduced set of 5 options focused on their key tasks, with additional functionality kept inside the hamburger menu to ensure that users discover the most important things without needing to use the menu. But it does risk that users will not discover the additional functions. So consider the trade-off between improving the discoverability of some functions over others. The BBC, like a lot of news agencies, uses what's called the Priority Plus menu with a More option. So their top tier has got 15 links, and that's more than most e-commerce websites as well, which generally have a lot of top tier links. In addition to that, they constantly have to reflect current affairs and add additional links. So COVID, cost of living, conflicts, wars, they're always adding these onto their top tier navigation. So to keep their navigation visible, they compromise by showing the most popular links first, and then they move any other links into an option called More at the end. And the smaller the screen gets, the more options move into More until there's more and more than there is visible. It's much like the Sky design. This prioritizes the elements, but those elements are tailored to the screen size. In addition, there's a higher probability that users will discover the items in More, because users will understand that this is not the full list with the fact that you've got the More there, and they are reading from left to right as they go through the navigation, so they're generally likely to see that. So if I ask you how to navigate to the homepage of from any page on a website, I think you would all tell me that you just need to click on the logo. And if I asked you where the logo would be, you'd all tell me confidently that this should probably be in the top left of the page. And we generally see that in all of our testing, day in, day out. People know how to navigate back to the homepage through the logo. It's probably the most understood convention in navigation without there being any visual clues whatsoever. So not following this convention could lead to user frustration and confusion. And studies have actually shown that positioning at top left significantly increases their chances of actually finding the home page quicker. In this example, Innocent Smoothies breaks 3 navigation conventions. So firstly, the logo is actually positioned in the middle of the page, making it harder to discover. The top tier navigation is hidden, so I don't know what information I can actually discover on this website. And then when I click on the logo, it doesn't take me back to the home page. What it does is it actually reveals the navigation. And if I want to get back to the home page now, I got to click on the logo twice. So I can get to the home page from the menu, and it takes me 2 clicks. And each time I click on the logo, it behaves in a different way. So it's clear Innocent have decided to hide their menu because their links are actually really long, and to try and fit these across the top would be quite difficult. So is this style justified? Well, arguably the links and the names are clear because they're well described, but the length makes it harder for them to read, harder for them to read quickly, and it presents them and it stops them being presented visibly. So Innocent would be better reviewing the title names to make them shorter. Things we make is basically a list of all their products, but Innocent only make drinks, so you can change that and shorten it to just drinks. So it informs people not only what their products are, but it makes it more discoverable. Okay, so poll number 2. Whilst all of our kind of research and findings are all based on facts, so we do test these things to find them out. I'm always willing to listen to other people's opinions. I'm always quite interested what people think. So the second poll question is it ever a good idea to use a hamburger menu on a desktop for the navigation? So let me know what you think. No, never. Only when the links are too long to fit. Sometimes, or it's always the best solution. What do you think? And I'll pass over to Mila now because I can't see the results coming in.
And Mila is struggling to get the poll out. Sorry for that little hiccup.
Gives me a chance to pause and get my voice back as well.
Maybe, sorry about that, but maybe we'll have to skip this poll because somehow I've lost the panel on my screen. But I'll make sure that the other one would be working. Sorry about it.
Okay, apologies, no problem. Apologies that we have got one more poll towards the end. We'll get everybody's opinion on. So we'll skip past this one. So the next thing then is how many links should you have on a page? And this is quite a common question we get from clients. You know, is it better to have more links on a page for people to find? But generally speaking, it is better to avoid repeating links on the same page. Having too many links fight for the user's attention, and it can create confusion. So users often wonder if the link they've seen previously is the same for the same task, and if this could even result in them clicking both to try and work out if they are the same thing. So take this example here. This is Transport for London. They've got 39 links on one page, and they're all fighting for the user's attention. There's 4 links for the visitor center and 3 links that take you to the visitor shop. Even those 2 things sound very similar. So there's 7 links for the visitor center shop. The temptation here is to repeat links as a safety net, because in case users miss it the first time, well, maybe they'll catch it later on. But also it saves users from having to scroll back up on very long pages. And that's why it's sometimes built into pages like this. It's better to actually try and simplify the design and have only one link and direct people to there so they know where they're going. Giving feedback and guidance to help users navigate. So as well as helping users to find what they are looking for, you need to make sure that they always know where they are in relation to the information available. Breadcrumbs, as the name suggests, they are a trail that show users their current location within the hierarchy structure of a website. There are a list of links representing the current page and its parent pages. So for example, here, this product can be found in the category Toolbox, which in turn can be found in Tool Storage and so on. These links are important because the users may not have navigated to your website directly through all these pages. They may have used the internal search, they may have used Google search and landed directly on this page. So breadcrumbs inform users where they are, and they aid them in understanding the context of the page they're on. So for example, if the user decided now they wanted to review other toolboxes, they can click on the second to last breadcrumb, which is the category page for all toolboxes. An alternative way to provide feedback other than doing breadcrumbs is using the navigation. So BBC, again, they highlight the first and the second tiers of navigation and links to show where they are. But it also allows people to navigate around the navigation quickly and easily. However, the BBC News is what's called a polyhierarchy. That means that articles can be discovered in more than one parent page. So clicking on some articles will change the navigation. Here, the article was discovered in level 1 tier world and level 2 tier USA and Canada. But when I've clicked on it, the article is now in level 1 business and level 2 business. So this could lead to some disorientation from the users who were previously going through a different category. So why not just use search? Well, search bars are critical to findability, but they're less suited for discoverability. They are most commonly found on e-commerce sites with large product ranges or platforms with vast amounts of information and content, such as an internet, university research, or YouTube, something like that. The problem with most searches is their accuracy. Users tend to make decisions about the value of your website within a couple of searches. So if your search isn't reliable, then they may consider the content unreliable as well. And very few websites can claim to be as effective as Google or Amazon. Take, for example, the search. If you wanted to search for garden shed latch, and so you're looking for a latch for your garden shed, on Amazon, the first 100 results, there are 97 latches and locks. And that's what I'm interested in. I'm interested in the latches and locks. And there are 3 garden sheds in those results, and I'm not interested in that. So they've got a 97% success rate for my needs. For the same search on B&Q, I get 8 latches, and I get 92 sheds. So they've got an 8% success rate based on my needs. This is even though there are 116 locks and latches for garden sheds on the B&Q site. The reason for such a low success rate on B&Q is that 2/3 of my keywords, garden and shed, are not what I'm looking for. They're just the context for the actual product, which is the latch. But Amazon search is so good it can understand my needs better than B&Q. Knowing this, we can improve search functions by including good, suitable filters. So B&Q's top filter option shows me that there are 116 items in hardware. So I can quickly and easily see all the results I'm looking for with one further click after this. So ensure you test your search results with your users. You need to understand their mental models to learn what terms and phrases they search for when they're looking for things. And then measure the success rate with your own search engines. So use those terms, search for them, and see whether or not you're able to get the right results quickly using filters. But don't expect your search to be as good as Google or Amazon. So we'll move now on to describing it clearly, which is all about labeling your links throughout your website. So links and labels need to have a strong information scent. So when deciding whether to click on something on the web, users generally choose those links with the highest information scent. So the Nielsen-Norman Group, they define this as a mix of cues they get from one, the label, the context in which it is shown, and their prior experiences of the user. So take this here, we've got a link for join our research community, and it's on a university website, and it clearly communicates what I expect. And given the context of it being a university website and the user base, who are going to be students looking for research information, professors looking for information, then it's highly likely that this will be understood. On the flip side, it's not surprising that low information scent can cause confusion. This is Nottinghamshire County Council's website for school admissions. And it has 4 different links to apply for a school face. And each link is labeled with what sounds like the same task, but as a slight variation to the description. So you can apply, so you can make an application for a school place online. You can apply for a secondary school place online. You can apply for a school place, or applying for a school place September. The fact is that actually only 2 of them are duplicates that go to exactly the same place. So effectively, between those 4 links, they go to 3 different places in the process, but they don't indicate the difference between them. There's not enough strong information sent there for me to understand which is the right one to click on. In addition, the secondary actions here are given the same weight and position. My primary task here is to understand how do I apply for a secondary school place. There is other information here, but they all have the same weight. That's all about visual hierarchy, which is a slightly different thing, but it just makes my task even harder. Don't use internal language and jargon. This may seem really obvious, but companies often develop marketing campaigns for their products and services, and they have engaging descriptions to get people excited and get them intrigued, and that's great. But these same terms on a website navigation without any context may not be obvious to users what they are. So, for example, grassroots tennis players, if they want to book a tennis court at their local club using the LTA website, this is the page you go to. But first glance at this website, it's not clear where users should be navigating to, because they are looking for keywords like book. That's my task. I'm looking to book a website. In fact, they need to click on rally, which has little or no information sent. The term book is only shown in the description underneath, but we know users don't read text, they scan it, so they'll struggle to discover this extra small bit of text down below. The other thing to point out in this is the images are a great way to improve the scent of links. But unless you can book a game of tennis against Emma Raducanu, then this image here is not appropriate. In fact, it could actually reinforce the message that rally represents something completely different. So try and use images to improve the strength of your information sent, and have appropriate images for your links. Links and labels should match headers. Again, this may sound like a really simple, obvious thing, but when a user clicks on a link, it's always best to reassure them instantly they're in the right place. Links and headers should be the same, otherwise users may question if they got to the right place. So for example, if I click on a link to join our research community, then I expect to see a page that is titled Join Our Research Community. But instead, I get a page called Extraordinary Together. Not only does the title not reassure me that I'm in the right place, but it doesn't adequately describe what I can expect to find on this page. Even given the context of it being a university website, it's not clear enough. You can use descriptive contents for links that are complex. Sometimes it's helpful to duplicate top-tier navigation. Sorry, I went too far. In your page, where the text provides useful information that can't be conveyed in the title alone. So that additional text will often aid users. So here, the HSBC Corporate Banking duplicates the navigation in the body of the page because it's a complex subject. However, don't be tempted to unnecessarily describe what are simple links. This makes it harder for users to scan the page and find what they're looking for. Single Fare Finder has a fairly strong information scent. The explanation of check the cost of a single journey between two stations isn't necessary here. Users will expect the additional copy to contain additional helpful information to them. In this page, that was double the amount of copy they need to read before they can decide which link they actually need to click on. Okay, so that's the first two done. We're into the last subject, just checking time. Okay, we're all right for time. Organizing content. Oh no, we're on to that one. So links can inform and educate users about your brand. There is no magic number for how many items you need to have on your navigation. There are some misconceptions that 7 is the ideal number. You can read some articles about it online. You may find them. That's because of Miller's Law. So Miller's Law states we can only remember about 7 chunks of information at a time, give or take. But users don't need to memorize navigation. They should never have to memorize navigation. It's always on the screen. So basically, too many options and they can become overwhelming because there's too much choice. But if there's too few, the categories become vague and non-specific and do not have enough of an information scent behind them. So the answer is, it depends. It can depend on, one, the breadth and the depth of your content. So for example, if you're an e-commerce website, you'll have significantly more categories than if you're a specialist shoe shop. And secondly, how meaningful your labels can be while still being short enough to fit on the screen. Another issue with having too few options is that they can fail to communicate to users what you offer. It might be obvious to some people what services O2 offer, but with links like YO2, they can still hide services that are less well known, such as their perks. And if your brand and your product is less well known than O2 is, then the navigation can help users to learn about your brand, learn about your product, and learn about your services. Generic titles with products, services, and help, which you often see these days on websites, as your 3 options could lead users to not understand your product well enough. Okay, organizing content. So information needs to be organized so that users can interpret it quickly and easily. How information is presented on a website will have a huge effect on a user's ability to understand it. These pictures of signs were taken in America, and they demonstrate how confusing parking is in some of the states in America. The one on the right has about 10 different rules, I think, and users need to interpret these to understand whether they're allowed to park and for how long. So for example, if it's 7 p.m. on a Thursday, are you allowed to park? How long are you allowed to park for? And if you can actually work it out, then you've done better than me. So in 2014, an American student who's applying for design college decided to try and reorganize this information and create new parking signs. So what she did is she prototyped them, she printed them, she stuck them on lampposts, put a marker pen next to them, asked people to write feedback or send her an email. And the results were overwhelmingly positive. She made some tweaks to make them more accessible. You can go online and read the story about this. It's really interesting. And she actually managed to get them piloted in several different states in America. And apart from being a great example of guerrilla research, it shows how organizing information can improve comprehension. Although cynically minded people may think that the reason they've not actually fully rolled these out yet is they actually want them to be confusing, because that will probably generate a lot more revenue for them. To organize content into a logical structure that people understand, you need to understand their mental models. So take the tomato. It's botanically classified as a fruit, but users could mentally categorize them as a fruit or a vegetable, depending on their personal experiences. So good information architecture requires the logical grouping of items to create what is called the hierarchy of information. For you to genuinely understand your users, it's necessary to know the context they will be approaching your services with and design it appropriately to meet their needs and their expectations. And this is where card sorting comes in, which you may have heard of. So card sorting is a method to organize content into meaningful categories. Participants are asked to organize topics into different categories that make sense to them. And they do this by grouping cards together that represent the different pages of your website. And then they label those into different groups based on what makes sense to them. So this is called an open card sort. And it's open because they are labeling the categories themselves. Sometimes the groups are labeled, the group labels are given to them in advance, and they have to drop them into those specific categories. These predefined categories make it a closed card sort. So you've got the two different types, an open card sort and a closed card sort. There is also a hybrid type as well. You can do this face-to-face, and you see the picture on the left there with physical cards. You can have images as well if you need to. However, there's also online tools such as Optimal Workshop, and the picture on the right shows you how that works. You effectively drag these kind of cards across to the right-hand side and then start to label them. So there is also the option to do it remotely. You don't have to moderate it. Moderated sessions are usually performed with around 15 to 20 participants. That's for statistical robustness. And allows a moderator to probe participants and ask them why they sorted cards into certain groups. For example, which was the hardest card or the easiest card to sort? Did any of the cards you think fit into possibly two categories? So you get an understanding of why they're doing that. Unmoderated sessions are often used where there is multiple user groups. So for example, if you had 3 user groups, it could potentially be too expensive to moderate 60 sessions. So you might moderate 5 from each and then run the rest remotely for statistical significance. So hopefully we can get the poll working. We've got another poll here to see how many people have actually done a card sort. So have you conducted a card sort before? This could either you personally or got somebody else to do that for you. But have you ever been involved in a card sort? So yes, I've done an open one. Yes, I've done a closed one. Yes, I've done both. If you've done a hybrid, put that in yes, I've done both. No, but I would like to. No, I don't think it is necessary. So fingers crossed. Is it working?
Yes, it is working. And while people are still submitting their responses for this poll, I'll quickly mention the results of the other poll when everyone said that whether it was a good idea to use a hamburger menu on the desktop for the navigation. And the winner with 71 responses on 50%, only when the links are too long to fit. So the majority of people. And the second answer was never, no, never. 44% of people responded that. And funnily enough, probably we should have included BigMaker into our slides, because the problem which I encountered, I couldn't discover where the button for the polls was, because it was hidden under the chat button for me on my screen. And I had no clue that chat means polls. And like it will open all the panel with the polls and Q&As. So yeah, next time we'll include that. Okay, so we have also the results about our card sort. Have you ever conducted a card sort before? The majority of people, 43%, yes, both kinds. And that corresponds with even, 82 people. And then no, but I would like to, 32%, 60 people. And then closely followed by some people tried open cut sort, some people tried closed cut sort. Roughly 22 people, 24 people responded that, and only 2 people said no, but I don't think it is necessary. So this is our results for the polls.
Great. That's very interesting, that the buttons there on the webinar tool, because clearly not clear enough information sent to be able to know where to click to find the polls. Okay, so moving on, we're talking about, we're going to go through card sorts for a bit longer. So when you're doing a card sort, it's really important to avoid bias in your card sorting by introducing a little bit of friction. So this is a quote from Jakob Nielsen from the Nielsen-Norman Group. And basically what he's saying is that card sorting is different to usability testing. So in a usability test, what you want to do is reduce cognitive load by making your designs easy to understand. In card labels, you should make people stop and think. You don't want to make it easy. Otherwise, you risk introducing a bias into your study by making cards too easy to pair. So what do I mean by this? You can introduce bias through either keywords or sentence structure. Here, the original labels all begin with the word manage. It's a very simple example, but if you ask your users to sort these, you're clearly going to get bias in your results, and they will clearly group all of these together because they've all got the word manage. Instead, it's necessary to find alternative descriptions that still reflect the action, but don't appear to be the same thing instantly. Participants may still group these or all of these or even some of these together, but it will be because they consider them to be similar tasks, not because they have similar sentence structures. One of the key challenges of card sorting is analyzing the data, because not all your participants will have the same mental model of how they expect the data to be organized. One of the most common tools to help you use this is a dendrogram, such as this. So this shows the most common groups and how many people agree with those groups. This one is for a flight booking website. So on the left are the cards that were used in the card sort, and this is what the participants saw. On the right are the most common groups. So as you move from left to right, there is less agreement, but fewer groups. So take here, for example, if we look at this group, we can see that there is 23% agreement that these 9 cards all belong together in a group that could be called either booking a flight, destinations, or find a holiday. But this is quite a low correlation with 23%. So if we move one branch to the left, the correlation jumps from 23% to 62%. And that suggests, and the suggested names here are still familiar, still similar to what we had before. So booking a flight, flight search and book, and make a new booking. So we've got better correlation with fairly similar names as before. But what's happened is we've lost 4 cards from this group. Those were ski and snowboard, tours and activities, where we fly, and inspire me. So if we look specifically at those 4 cards, we can now see that there is a 46% correlation on these cards. However, they are more related to inspiration, with suggestions such as destination, inspiration and ideas, inspire me, not sure where to go. So it feels like it is something different to what we were looking at before. If we go back to the original branch and we go back one step further, our correlation actually jumps to 77%. What's happened here is we've lost the group booking card. That's all that's come out. So at this point, I may decide to keep group booking in the same category, but consider if the name is right or if it just needs other links or other pathways to help find that content. So building architecture, it's not black and white. There are nuances, and it's the researcher's job to use this data and these insights from their conversations that they've had during the moderated search to understand what to include in each category. Another tool you can use is what's called a similarity matrix. It clusters related pairs of cards together, and it shows how many people grouped each topic with another. So here we can see 92% of people thought that the last minute flight deals and cheap flights should be grouped together. So that's a really strong correlation. To make it easier to analyze, they shade the squares. So the darker the shading, the stronger the correlation. What this does is it reveals groups. like the dendrogram, but it also shows the topics that have got the least correlation to other, we can see from the lighter colors. So by using both these tools, researchers can build up a good picture of the user's mental model and start to build out the hierarchy. Another consideration for researchers is how deep to make the structure. So these visualizations show two different hierarchies. The first is flat, it's only got 2 layers of menu options, and the second is deep, it's got 4 layers, but they both have the same number of pages. Knowing whether to use a flat or deep structure will depend on your content and the user's mental models, but some general rules are information is easier to discover in a flatter structure because it's not buried beneath so many different levels. Flatter hierarchies are also likely to have more categories than that are specific and don't overlap because there are more of them at each level. However, something to bear in mind is that a flatter structure will have more conceptual labels because there are more options in each one underneath. So you need to be careful with not to make your structure too flat. So some things to bear in mind. Generally, flatter is better, but you need to bear some things in mind when you're doing that. So now you've created your architecture, you need to test it. The best way to do this is a tree test. So tree tests are task-based research methods, much like a usability test, but they are designed to evaluate only the findability of information. The good news about a tree test, you don't need to create a prototype. And in fact, it's actually important not to build a prototype because what you don't want to do is influence your participants with visual design or other clues. So participants are given a task of where they would expect to find a very specific piece of information. In this example, participants are asked where they would find information about group bookings. But critically, the term group booking is not used to describe the task because this would lead to priming the users with language that is used on the labels itself. So to discover the right location, first they'd have to click on flight information, then they'd have to click on group booking, and then they would need to confirm that this is where they think they would find the information. Like a card sort, there are lots of analytics for a tree test that require careful analysis and interpretation. This is a pie tree. It shows the routes that users took. The pies, which are the circles, show participants' behavior at each click based on the percentages. So a green means that they went down the right path. Red means they went down the wrong path. Blue means when they went backwards. And yellow means they nominated that as the correct answer. In addition, the green lines show where the participant went the right path and the gray lines show when they went down the wrong path. So in this example, we can see that most participants expected to find the answer in Fly With Us. But in fact, in the end, 80% of them clicked, participants clicked Fly With Us first. In the end, 66% of participants selected group bookings as their answer. So there was a lot of people who went down the wrong route and then they came back. So this helps us understand whether or not where the people expect to find this information. They do find it, but you don't want to build an architecture where people are going down their second route to find the information. So in summary, you can see that both a card sort and a tree test are needed to understand mental models and define your information architecture and then test it. So just to quickly recap, provide routes to information by making your navigation discoverable and following conventions, but also consider how users consume information and their context of use. Describe it clearly with labels that they will understand, and organize your content by understanding people's mental models through card sorts and tree tests. One final thing before we go into questions and answers, just a reminder that if you're interested in doing any training with us, we offer several training courses, including information architecture. These are all written and presented by Bunnyfoot consultants. And if there's something you'd like tailored or specific, please let us know. We also are certified trainers of the CPUX courses, which are internationally recognized. If you are interested in any of that training, or if you want us to test, evaluate your websites, your navigation, or go through some card sorting with you, please contact Jo. I'm sure you've all been in contact with her before today about the webinar, but just in case, there are her contact details on the screen. So, questions and answers. So I'm hoping Mila's, we've got some questions at this point.
Oh, yes, we have a lot of questions. So thank you very much, everyone who submitted their questions. And I thank you, everyone who did some upvoting, because we received so many of them. So to make sure we answer the most popular ones. So we have 2 questions which were upvoted, 7. Oh, actually, it keeps moving. Anyway, it changed. So question number 1 about breadcrumbs. So everyone is familiar that breadcrumbs is quite challenging to design and build for mobile first experience. So Steve is asking, are there any tips or best practices for designing breadcrumbs for mobile?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of different options for mobile breadcrumbs. So like the example I showed on there, which I think was a Toolbox website, if you look at theirs, what they do is they only show one parent level up. So you can click back to the next parent and then the next parent, the next parent. So it's one at a time. But there are quite a few examples where the label names are short enough that they show the entire length of the breadcrumb. So you can find quite a few examples of those around, and they both work. Depends on the length of your breadcrumb. The only thing I would say is do not wrap them. So don't let them wrap around to a second or a third level and start pushing your content down. You lose content on your page, and it does look very scruffy as well. So try and get it all on if your labels allow it. If not, just go for one level up.
I have nothing else to add, I believe, to this question. But we have another one, which was also upvoted a lot. It's that golden rule. I think, Stephen, you mentioned that already about how many is many for the navigation, how many labels is many. And you've mentioned 7, and I believe Nikki also says, like, yeah, a Norman and Nielsen group, they mentioned 7 as a golden rule. But I guess our answer and what you said earlier, it just depends. It depends, and there is more and more cases these days that websites have more menu labels, top navigation ones especially. So any more that you would like to elaborate, because this question was upvoted quite a lot.
Yeah. So the simple answer to that is there is no. That was the kind of point, which is there is no magic number. There is no maximum. There is no minimum, and the 7 is a misconception. And Nielsen Norman actually write about this quite a lot. That they also agree that it's a misconception that some people have picked up on. 7 has nothing to do with it. There is no magic number. There is no evidence in any testing that suggests 7's a great number to have in your navigation. The simple answer is it depends on your how short you can make your labels and how much you can fit on the screen. So there is no kind of like try to keep it down to a minimum number. You basically need to work on how many you can fit on your screen with labels that make sense and they have a strong enough information set. So don't look for a key number. Just do your card sorting, do your tree testing to find out what's the right one, and then how do you create the labels that are clear enough with clear names that are short enough.
I have a little addition, because we just had some conversations with my colleague, the interaction designer, about what to put in the footer, what to leave in the main menu. And the thing is, if there is something which is very important, I believe it's best to put in the main menu that hide it in the footer, because especially if your users use mobile version of the website, because then they will sometimes never reach footer because they have to scroll so much. So if there's something which needs definitely, even if it's a secondary one, but you still have space in the main navigation, in the main menu, just leave it there. Don't try to hide it in the footer.
Yeah. And you can test that as well. You can test people's expectations of whether they would expect to find things in your footer or not. Because certain things they will expect to find down there, certain things they won't, but it is very undiscoverable.
Yeah. Okay, we have a question about tools, free tools, instead of using Optimal Workshops, which is quite expensive. And also Nikki mentioned that she used Mural. And is there any other cheap option or reliable free option maybe? I would say that probably the Muralbot as well. You can do cut sort using Muralbot, but then of course it will not automate, even though now they have AI features, but not as advanced yet to analyze quickly. That's the beauty of the Optimal Workshops with the analysis. But you can do it for free indeed with tools like Mural or Miro. And it would be like a substitute for the physical card sort. Everything that we used to do back in the day before Optimal Sort or Optimal Workshop has started to exist. Yeah, what you, Steven?
Yeah, I completely agree. The beauty of those tools, yes, they do cost money to use, but it is the data you get out of it, and there is a phenomenal amount of data you can get. I mean, what I've showed you there in terms of dendrograms and similarity matrices, they're just part of what you can actually do on those tools. So you're paying for effectively the analysis to the tools that come out of it. Yeah, you can do it with pens and paper. You can do it on Miro. But then it's just going to take a lot longer to sort through that information and come up with the patterns that help you analyze it later on.
Yeah. And we have a question from Oliver. That's how does the rule of avoiding link repetition on a page apply to a landing page with a repeated call to action, for example, to sign up? Some argue that showing the sign up button again as the user scroll down the page to increase the odds of signing up. So yeah, any golden rules for repetitions on the landing page?
Yeah, I think it's a very good point. It's a very fair point. I think there you've got to have a balance. If you've got one key task, so when you've got a page where you're trying to get people to perform one key task and you're repeating the same message again and you're just reminding them, then I think it becomes a bit more acceptable. You're not giving out confusing messages. What I would suggest avoiding is multiple links on a page repeated as well. Adds to enormous confusion. But having a sign-up process, don't overly repeat it too much. Generally, if you've got a static nav, you've got to sign up at the very top of it anyway, so they can reach it quickly. But you could have one maybe in the middle, maybe at the bottom. But I wouldn't overdo it too much either.
I have a little follow-up question for you. What about sticky buttons? What about if it's that main call to action? Because that's also sometimes you see on the website, like the sticky button, the main one.
Yeah, well, if your navigation, if that's your main task you want people to perform, and you've got your navigation, you can remain sticky and you can contain it in there, because most people I think would expect to find a sign up or a login within the top navigation that can remain sticky. There are other ways to make content at the bottom sticky. I think that would need to be tested depending on the context of what you're doing generally.
Yeah, thank you. That was potential also answer. There is a question: when would you recommend using an open card sort versus closed, and vice versa?
Really good question. I think generally open card sorts are probably more advisable, because you want to understand people's mental models of how they describe your architecture. Closed card sorts are usually used in very specialist websites or navigations, whereby you've got to stick to the labels because it's an industry convention, or it might be regulated, or something whereby there's some reason like that means you need to keep to those kind of conventions. Other than that, if there are no conventions to stick to, then I would potentially think about doing an open card sort.
I have a little addition to this question. You can do also hybrid, for example, where you will keep some cards closed because, for example, they're out of scope and they're performing well. Maybe you've done user testing before and it's performing well, it's working well, it's right taxonomy, right, good logic. So you don't want to change it. So you'll keep them closed, and the other opens that are in scope of change. So be my little addition. We have 2 minutes left. So the question, do all good websites need search functionality? Deborah is working on a charity website, and there's quite a small number of pages in the content. So is the search needed? Because it's quite laborious to set it up right.
Is it needed for all websites? No, it's definitely not needed for all websites. There are plenty of good websites out there that don't have search. I think it's only necessary where you've got a significant amount of content. Generally with large areas where you've got large number of products, or you've got large volume of content, and it might, articles, I think things like intranet sites, university websites, there you've got lots and lots of articles, and they're polyhierarchies, so they could be in multiple places as well. They're not obvious where they might be. There you definitely need them. But if your website doesn't have a great deal of content, no, I wouldn't say it's critical either. Also, see how good Google is at finding stuff on your own website. There's a lot of testing we do whereby users will go to, when asked to how would you search for a product, the response is, well, I'd go to Google to search for it, and that would take me to the right page because I know the search engine on this website is just not going to be good enough. And we see that all the time. And it's probably a behavior most people will recognize in themselves as well, I think.
Yeah, well, the time is up, unfortunately. We still have loads of questions left, and we also received lots of thanks in the chat. So thank you for everyone who found the time this afternoon to join us, and thank you for all your questions. Maybe we'd be able to follow up and email with some of them, especially the ones who are upvoted. So thank you for your time. Thank you, Stephen, for all the knowledge that you've shared today.
Yeah, thank you, Mila, as well. Thanks for helping.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Take care. Bye.